Hey, good morning. It's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, live for you on LouTube today. And thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also. And up today, another 2018 college football team preview. Going back to the Big Ten today. What we do? SEC yesterday, right? Auburn. Yeah. We'll go back to the Big Ten today and tackle the preview for the 2018 Wisconsin Badgers out of the Big Ten Western Division. The not as good division as the other. The East, of course, the better of those two divisions in the Big Ten. This video comes as a request from Ryan over on the Patreon page. Ryan, thank you, sir. I really appreciate you supporting the Uncle Lou channel. If any of you guys want to join the Patreon page, just click the first link in the description of this video. It'll take you over there. I appreciate all the support you guys are giving me. I really, really do. Thumbs up this video if you're excited about the start of the college football season. Subscribe to Uncle Lou if you're not already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year. Live show tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern, taking your phone calls. If you haven't checked out the live shows, you really should. We have a lot of fun on there. That'll be tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. And with that, let's get right into today's video, the preview for the 2018 Wisconsin Badgers. All right, here we go. Wisconsin Badgers, 2018 team preview. We're going to do this the same way. We'll wrap up 2017, talk about what the roster looks like for 2018. Then I'll put the schedule up for this year. We'll go through it game by game. I'll pick a winner and loser for every single game, and we'll try to figure out what Wisconsin's overall record might look like at the end of the regular season. All right, 2017. Pretty good year for anyone's standards, really. Ran through the regular season really unchallenged at 12-0, meeting up with Ohio State in the Big Ten title game where they lost a close one, 27-21, I think it was. So 6 points away, Wisconsin came from making the college football playoff. They got left on the outside looking in when the committee decided to put the one-loss Alabama in over one-loss Wisconsin. We're not going to litigate that. Again, it is what it is. Obviously, the committee made the right decision. Bama won the college football playoff. The committee's job is to get the best 4 teams in, not conference winners or second place finishers in conference championship games. None of that. It's the 4 best teams. Obviously, they did their job with Alabama winning. They go on to the Orange Bowl last year, played Miami, which was basically a home game for Miami. Miami also had a pretty good year last year, coming up 1 game short of winning the ACC, falling to Clemson in that conference championship game, getting annihilated, really. Basically a home game for Miami. Wisconsin travels all the way down south and beats Miami without a problem. So Miami lost basically a home game for their bowl game. Wisconsin finishes at 13-1. Great season. Obviously fell short of where they wanted to be. As the season went along, Wisconsin kept climbing up to the polls. Never really cracked the top 4. A lot of people knocked their schedule. But point is, they were 12-0, like I said, and 6 points away from making the college football playoff, so a pretty successful season in 2017. Can they repeat that or do a little bit better in 2018? Well, they've got some pieces coming back that can help them do it, especially on the offensive side of the ball where they return 10 of 11 starters. Most notably, of course, Heisman candidate running back Jonathan Taylor. This guy ran for, 1,900 yards last year? I think I wrote it down somewhere. Yeah, 1,977 yards, 13 touchdowns, finished 6th in Heisman voting as a true freshman. This guy's an absolute beast, and if you know anything about college football or Wisconsin, you know they have an NFL offensive line almost every single year. That'll be the case again this year. They returned 5 starters from last year's offensive line. They're juggling a few of those pieces around, but the point is they're going to have an elite line, and they have an elite running back. Now, at the wide receiver spot, they had this guy, Cephas, last year, right? 6 touchdown passes, missed the last 5 games. But the 3 guys behind him, Taylor, Davis, and Pryor, really stepped up when he was out. So they're going to, do they have any elite first-round talent wide receivers? No, but they've got good wide receivers. The question is going to be on quarterback, of course, Hornibrook, sophomore last year. He's got to cut down on his interceptions, right? Threw way too many interceptions, 15, I think it was. Look at Wisconsin. They won a lot of games last year. Well, I don't want to say they won games with defense, but they had a really good defense last year. Last year, they had like 10 defensive starters return. Most of those players are gone this year. On defense this year, they lose 8 starters. So you might see a different kind of Wisconsin football team in 2018 than what you're used to seeing over the last year or two. Wisconsin was known as sort of a defensive team, run the ball, slow the game down, things like that. Now, obviously, Wisconsin's still going to have a game plan of running the football. You don't have an elite offensive line like they do and an elite running back like Jonathan Taylor and then choose not to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. But I think they can be a lot more successful through the air this year than they have been the last couple of years. I don't think Hornibrook is some sort of elite breakout playmaker at the quarterback position, but he's got enough experience there. He's pretty consistent. He completes passes at a good percentage. If he can just get the interception number down a little bit, I think Wisconsin could actually have a better offense this year. This may be the best offense Wisconsin's had. I mean, you might have to go back to like the Russell Wilson days when the, what was it, Ron Dane and them running backs back in those. I mean, you might have to go that far back to find an offense that has as much potential as Wisconsin's offense has this year. Now, defensively, like I said, they lose a ton of talent. They lose 8 starters. They're going to be okay up the middle, I think. Defensive tackles, they've got some hogs up there, some big guys that can shut down some run lanes and eat up some blocks. They're okay in the middle. The concern, if you're a Wisconsin fan, is going to be on the outside of that defense. Edge rushers, defensive ends, outside linebackers, and corners. That could be a weakness for Wisconsin. We'll see when we go through the schedule if there's some teams with a passing game maybe that may be able to take advantage of Wisconsin's back end on their defense. But Wisconsin is a loaded team this year. They're everyone's pick to win the Big Ten West. It would be a huge shock to me and most everyone else if anyone other than Wisconsin wins the Big Ten West. But can they repeat 12-0? Let's put the schedule up and we'll go through it. And we'll see if we can find a loss, or are they going to run the table 12-0 again? All right, here's the schedule. How do you start out? Well, 3 home games. Western Kentucky, New Mexico, BYU. You take the first 2, those are automatic wins in any year. Wisconsin's going to beat those 2 teams 99 times out of 100. This year will be one of those 99 times. Wisconsin will start 2-0 without really even breaking a sweat at home at Camp Randall against Western Kentucky and New Mexico. You'll beat them by a lot to a little. Now, I'll probably watch some of these 2 games here because I want to see Wisconsin's quarterback. I want to see him make some better decisions with the football. If he can get through these 2 games with no interceptions, I think that's a good sign. I know it's Western Kentucky and New Mexico, but look, this guy threw 15 interceptions last year, so he was throwing interceptions to anybody who was willing to catch them last year. He needs to get through these 2 games with 0 interceptions. I think that'll be good for his confidence. The wide receivers and the coaching staff will gain a little more trust in this guy, and it'll set them up nice as they move into their conference schedule, which starts in week 4. Now, BYU not a pushover on the level of a Western Kentucky or New Mexico. Most conferences consider BYU to be one of the Power 5 teams, just like Notre Dame. Neither is in a conference, but for scheduling purposes, most conferences consider BYU to be a Power 5 school. The problem is BYU's coming off one of its worst seasons in memory. I think they were 4-8 last year. I may be off by a game one way or the other. Maybe they were 3-9. Maybe they were 5-7. But the point is, they were terrible last year. Like I said, one of their worst years in memory. You get them at home. I don't see the traveling Mormon Brigade coming up to Camp Randall. Too much jump around up there. Too much secular music for the Mormons. They don't like that. And you're going to go ahead and beat BYU without a problem. You'll start out 3-0. So 25% of the way through your season, and you're undefeated. Now you get your first conference game and your first road game at Iowa. What do we know about Iowa? Well, we know they scored 55 points on Ohio State last year. I don't expect them to do that in this game. Iowa's a good team. And you know, Kirk Ferentz, to coach Iowa, there's a handful of coaches, and if you've watched me for a while, you've heard me say this before, but there's a handful of coaches that I feel like are at schools that are never going to recruit on an elite level, but are constantly and consistently able to get the absolute most out of the talent level that they do have. And I think Ferentz at Iowa is one of those guys. I put David Shaw in that category. I put James Franklin in that category, although Franklin at Penn State is now able to get some elite recruits, and we're seeing what he can do with them now, challenging for the Big Ten year in and year out up there. But he really, what he did at Vanderbilt was nothing short of a modern-day miracle, James Franklin I'm talking about. And I put Ferentz sort of in that category. Iowa wins one of these type of games every single year, it seems like to me. Of course, everyone remembers last year's Ohio State game. That's the game that kept Ohio State ultimately from making the college football playoff. They just got absolutely drubbed by Iowa, 55-34. I think the final score was of that game, just humiliating. I think that's probably a good thing that happened to Ohio State in terms of Wisconsin's team this year. You have three nobodies. There's no reason Wisconsin won't have this game circled or be ready and motivated for this game. I don't see any way Wisconsin gets caught looking past this. Last year, Ohio State, didn't they play Penn State the week before they lost to Iowa? So their biggest game of the year, an emotional win. They turn around the following week and lay a dud. You don't have anything like that the week before Iowa. You play BYU, you'll humiliate them. This is your first conference game, your first road game. You saw what Iowa did to Ohio State last year. There's no way Iowa's sneaking up on you. And even though I like what Iowa does and I like Ferentz, I can't see them beating Wisconsin this year. It's at Iowa, so it's got the potential to be a tricky game. You have your bye week after that, so you're not going to get caught looking ahead to anybody. You're not going to be coming off any sort of emotional win from the week before. It's your first conference game. It's your first road game. You'll be ready, excited. I think Wisconsin gets the win, and they're sitting at 4-0 heading into their bye week. Fifth game of the year. This is an interesting game. Now, I've done my Nebraska preview, so you already know where I land on this game if you saw that one. You know that I'm not very high on Nebraska overall this year, but I am high on Scott Frost. I'm buy and hold on Scott Frost at Nebraska. I think he can have success there. Just don't think it'll happen this year. Scott Frost in for a rude awakening. He's going to find out that playing UCF's schedule, not quite the same as playing the schedule that Nebraska has to play this year, which is absolutely brutal. I'll put a link, if I can remember, to the Nebraska preview right up here if you want to check that out. Nebraska can't compete with Wisconsin. Now, I do think Nebraska will beat one of the big teams that they play this year. And it's almost impossible to try to pinpoint which one that might be. Is it possible it's Nebraska? It's possible, although I think it's more likely if Nebraska is going to win some sort of game they're not supposed to win, I think it's more likely it happens at home. This one's in Wisconsin. Again, Camp Randall, too much jump around. Scott Frost not ready for that. You definitely didn't see any road crowds at Central Florida like you're going to see at Wisconsin in this game. Nebraska can't get this done. Wisconsin wins this one, and you're sitting at, 5-0 now. Now, up next is what I think could be one of the games of the year in college football. Not just in the Big Ten, but one of the games of the year. I've also done a Michigan preview. Link right up here. If you've seen the Michigan preview, then you know that I have Michigan undefeated at this point in the season, too. So you're going to have an undefeated Wisconsin traveling to Ann Arbor to take on an undefeated Jim Harbaugh Michigan Wolverine team that finally has a quarterback, and that is a big deal. Michigan's defense is absolutely elite, loaded, especially the front seven, but all three levels, though, really. Michigan's defense is for real, and if there's a defense in the Big Ten, and Ohio State's got a good front seven too, I would give Michigan an edge in the front seven over Ohio. I know Ohio State fans don't like to hear that. It's just one person's opinion, though. I would take Michigan's front seven over anybody else's in the Big Ten. If there's a team in the Big Ten that can slow down Nebraska's running game and Jonathan Taylor and make Hornibrook win the game with his arm, it's Michigan. This is one of the hardest games of the year to pick, in my opinion, as far as preseason-wise. Now, by the time this game rolls around and we've seen both teams play, it may be a little easier to pick. If Shea Patterson ends up not being as good as I think he'll be at Michigan, maybe this game becomes easier to pick. It's on the road. It's a true toss-up game in every sense of the word. I'll come back at the very end, talk a little bit more about that game, and tell you who I have winning. Then you come back home and play Illinois. I mean, come on. I could gather up 11 people from my neighborhood and beat Illinois. This is just not fair. You'll humiliate them. Even if for some reason you lose the week before, no type of hangover effect. At least not enough to give Illinois, the Fighting Illini. Is that an engine, the Illini? Anyway, they don't have a chance. You'll win that game. And then you go on the road at Northwestern. I have this game as a toss-up too, and the reason is, and you know this again if you watch a lot of my videos, almost every team loses a game they're not supposed to lose every single year, right? I mean, obviously at Iowa's a possibility, but at Northwestern's a possibility too. They've got a good coach. They rarely make mistakes. Are they as talented as Wisconsin? No, it's not even close. Not even close. But I put this as a toss-up because it's late in the year. You don't know what the injury situations might look like here. And Northwestern is another team that usually beats one or two teams in the Big Ten every year that you look back and go, how the hell did that happen? How did Northwestern beat, or how did such and such lose to Northwestern? So I have this one as a toss-up. Yes, you're the better team. I'll pick a winner on that one here in a second. You come back home and play Rutgers. You might as well be playing Tennessee. That's how bad Rutgers is. They're one of the worst teams in the Power 5. And Rutgers, Tennessee, Baylor, Kansas. I mean, these are just terrible teams. You'll beat them, regardless of what happens the week before. You'll beat Rutgers without a problem. You end the season with 2 road games, and this really is where the problem lies with Wisconsin. Penn State is obviously a good team. Yes, I know they lose Saquon Barkley. But they've got, what's his name back, McSorley at the quarterback position. Now, he led the Big Ten in passing last year. I don't think anybody will be surprised if he leads the Big Ten in passing again this coming year. I know Ohio State fans are high on their quarterback. Haskins, is that his name? But, you know, McSorley, a really, really good quarterback. Again, a guy that doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Is he a dual threat guy? No, but he can hurt you with his legs if he decides that's what he wants to do. He's pretty mobile, and he's not afraid to take off with the ball when he thinks he can get a first down, or when he sees an opening, or when he's flushed out of the pocket or things like that. He does have the ability to hurt you with his legs. I like Penn State's defense. The Big Ten has some serious home field advantages, right? I mean, Wisconsin, you guys have one of your own there at Camp Randall. Michigan, the Big House. Ohio State, the Shoe. Penn State, Happy Valley. This is probably going to be a night game. They like to do that whiteout thing. I have that. This is a toss-up, but obviously I think this and the Michigan game are your 2 toughest games of the year without question. You could potentially lose both of them. You could potentially win both of them. But I've got this one, just like the Michigan game, listed as a toss-up. You finish the year. At Penn State, at Purdue, and then you have Minnesota. I said that was your last 2 games, but it's not. I forgot about Minnesota, which hasn't everyone forgotten about Minnesota? I mean, Minnesota hasn't been relevant since that TV show Coach went off the air, right? What was that blonde-headed, that goofy guy's name on there, that blonde-headed guy? Yeah, him. Dauber. Yeah. Anyway, Penn State toss-up. At Purdue, toss-up. Look, Jeff Brom, a name that you're going to hear a lot about as this season rolls along. Is this going to be his last year in Purdue? He had some offers last year. He turned them down. Why? Because it was from Tennessee. Career suicide, take that job. So, smart decision there. But Purdue's another team in the Iowa category and the Northwestern category. You're a much better team than Purdue. But this is on the road. It's after Penn State. I mean, this is tough here. This is hard to pick. If I knew what was going to happen in the Penn State and the Nebraska game, it would make my choice a lot easier here. I have it as a toss-up. I'll pick a winner and a loser in a minute. And you finish at home, Minnesota, win. Golden Gophers, who cares? I mean, it's a nobody team. They're not very. I know they've got a coach that some people like or whatever, but let's just be real. Minnesota's not beating Wisconsin. That puts you at 7 games. I have you winning no matter what. No guaranteed losses. You could potentially win every game. But I got 5 games that maybe could go either way. Obviously, I don't expect you to lose all 5 of those and go 7-5. You're a much better team than that. But let's see if we can find any losses. All right, after starting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-0, you go on the road at Michigan. I mentioned I already did that preview, so this may or may not be a surprise to you. I have you beating Michigan. This is your first truly big game of the year. I know the at Iowa game, first conference game on the road, Iowa upset Ohio State, blah, blah, blah. it pales in comparison to this game, Wisconsin at Michigan. This is going to be, I'm not exaggerating when I say this could be one of the games of the year here. I can't tell you, as an SEC fan, and SEC gets made fun of a lot for not having these high-flying offenses or whatever, I cannot wait to see Wisconsin, their offensive line, and Jonathan Taylor go up against Michigan's front seven. I cannot... that may be... Do you have any idea how many NFL players are going to be on Wisconsin's offensive line plus Jonathan Taylor? And then Michigan's defensive line and linebackers? How many players is that total? Okay, Michigan's front seven, obviously that's 7. 5 offensive linemen and a running back, that's 6. 7 plus 6 is 13. If you're in South Carolina, you can either get out a calculator or you can just trust me. 7 plus 6 is 13. Of those 13 players, you got to think at least 10 of these guys are going to be in the NFL. This is going to be one hell of a matchup here. I cannot wait to watch this game. I picked you guys to win, Wisconsin. Defense is your biggest question mark. Quarterback is Michigan's biggest question mark. If Shea Patterson is the real deal and can throw the ball around, it's going to be tough for you guys to win. I get it. And if you can't get Jonathan Taylor going, I gave you guys the win, though. You're sitting at 6-0. Illinois, 7-0. At Northwestern, some potential to be interesting. I just can't see you losing. You win that one. Still undefeated. Rutgers win. At Penn State, this is where you catch a loss. I just don't, this schedule's too tough, I think, for you to go undefeated. This schedule might be too tough for anybody in America to go undefeated. I don't think you're a bad team. I'm not knocking you. I feel like at Penn State is your best chance to catch a loss. It's late in the season. It's on the road. Then I have you beating Purdue. So, I mean, I have you going 11-1 here. Now, I know you were 12-0 last year, so you might be thinking, well, that's a step back. Wisconsin's goal is to get to the playoffs, not to go 12-0, or at least that's what it should be. 11-1 will be good enough for sure in the Big Ten West to get you to the Big Ten title game, where you're probably going to play either Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, or Penn State. I mean, it's going to be one of those 4, or whoever. You know what I'm saying? Can you win it this year? I really don't know. I'll give some predictions on that at a later time, but 11-1 is just as good as 12-0. Whether you're 12-0 or 11-1, it doesn't matter. Your season, again, is going to come down to that Big Ten title game. Can you win it this time and take that next step to the college football playoffs? Again, if you've been watching me during this offseason, I'm very high on Wisconsin, and I'm in love with Jonathan Taylor. I think Jonathan Taylor is one of the best running backs in America. I know Bryce Love is good and gets a lot of attention and notoriety, and that's well-deserved. But Jonathan Taylor is a grown man and the real deal. I would probably take Jonathan Taylor on my team over Bryce Love. Bryce Love, injury issues. Anyway, can't knock a player for that. But anyway, I just like the style of player that Jonathan, he's one of my favorite players in college football this year. And I'm high on Wisconsin. I think you guys go 11-1, which will definitely be good enough to win the Big Ten West, and you're going to roll the dice in the Big Ten title game for a trip to the playoffs and see what happens. So anyway, that's it for the 2018 team preview for the Wisconsin Badgers. Again, shout out Ryan, and thank you, sir, for supporting me over on the Patreon page. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the preview. Still got several more Patreon member previews to do. And then I will get to all the other teams that people have been requesting in the comments section and teams that I want to do. A lot of people keep asking for Alabama. A Patreon member hasn't requested Alabama. I got to get through these ones that the Patreon members requested first. I promise you I'm doing an Alabama preview. Who else? Penn State. I'm doing Penn State. North Carolina. I'm doing North Carolina. Georgia Tech. I'm doing Georgia Tech. LSU is on the Patreon list. It'll be coming soon. Miami's on the Patreon list. It's coming soon. There's some other interesting teams on there too. Army, Navy, FAU, Arizona, just to name a few. So Kennesaw State, one of the Patreon members wants a preview for. So there's plenty more previews coming. We still got a few weeks here before the start of the season. I promise I will get all the previews out that you guys want to see. But I really appreciate you watching today. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. Thumbs up this video, share it with your friends. I'll see you guys tonight on the live show at 10 Eastern. Have a great morning. That's Dr. Lou's orders too.